Welcome to the Heart-Centered Sales Leader podcast on webtalkradio.net. I'm your Heart-Centered Sales Leader and, of course, host Connie Whitman. So every week, as you tune in, you guys know, I know I'm a broken record. I'm on a movement to change that word of sales from that icky, sleazy, Wolf of Wall Street vibe to really, you have to shift and come from this place of love, care, and respect. And to help you on that mindset journey of that really pivotal shift, right, of coming from care, love, and respect, I have on my website a free resource for everyone, which is your communication style assessment. And within that assessment, you get a free report about your superpowers. So it shows how you show up to your clients, your prospects, your colleagues, your family, everybody in your life. I also provide your lowest score, which is your blind spots. And unfortunately, sometimes we're unaware of our blind spots. That's why we call them blind spots, but they could be shooting you in the foot and causing you distress and leaving business on the table. So go to whitmanassociates.com/CSA for communication style assessment. It's in the show notes. Take that test. It's free. It's a little quiz. Takes you 10 minutes, and you'll really get some insight. The other thing, because you know how demanding I am, I want you to go and subscribe to the show just so you don't ever miss an episode. And if you'd like to rate and review, I love to read those notes. They mean so much to me, and always appreciate it. So my quote today is by George Bernard Shaw. And George says, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's taken place." So whether you realize it or not, everyone is selling as part of their job, some part, right? You're either selling to your boss as to why you should get promoted or why you should get that increase in salary, right? So we're always pushing why me, right? Why me, that sales perspective. Well, 20% of the time, no matter what your job is, even if you're an attorney or a CPA and that's not your full-time job, 20% of the time we are selling. So today my guest is Rebecca Gebhardt. She's a best-selling author of, name of the book, you should all buy it, Beyond the Board, How to Achieve Your Vision Board. Am I saying that right, Rebecca? Yeah, Beyond the Board, How to Achieve Your Vision Board Goals in a Fulfilling and Sustainable Way. She was the former top 1% sales and sales team leader at Globe Life Family Heritage Division and also at Southwestern. Rebecca now helps ease the transition from sales to sales leadership, which, by the way, are two very different things. So please help me welcome my amazing guest, amazing friend, Rebecca, to the show. So Rebecca, thank you for being on.
I'm so excited to be here, Connie. Thanks for having me.
Yes, me too. And I apologize. I want to say your book one more time. It's Beyond the Board, How to Achieve Your Vision Board Goals in a Fulfilling and Sustainable Way, which is really important. And we're really going to focus on that, going from that sales to that sales leadership position, because whether we like it or not, sales is a part of every industry, every job. Even if you're in a back office somewhere, sales is still prevalent. And then we get promoted because we're really good at sales, but that doesn't mean we're really good at leadership, right? So this I think is a super important question. Now, you just finished a survey about the emerging sales leader. Why did you do that?
I was, in the last year, I made a hard pivot from sales coaching to sales leadership coaching. And I was hearing with my clients the big issues they were having. And my clients do very well. And I was like, if these are some of the best and brightest leaders at sales organizations that are having these same issues, other people are having these issues. So what I did, I created a curriculum for coaching. And then I went, I don't actually know statistically if this is true. Like, I know it to be true from my 20 years of sales leadership experience. And I know a lot of sales leaders, and I've helped lots of people. But I went, where are the numbers? And I could not find the numbers. So I started looking around, and there were a lot of transitions. There's a lot of leadership coaching. I've learned more about some coaching that's been done about transitions, but not for sales, to sales leadership. And I just went, doesn't this exist? So the short thing, I called Gerhard Gerschwantner, who is the CEO of Selling Power magazine, and I was almost like asking the teacher for the answers, right? Because he's an author and he's a researcher. And I said, Gerhard, do you have any information or know where I could look? Because it'll take me months to find it. He said, I don't have it. I don't think it exists. Why don't you create a survey? And I never thought to do that. So I really appreciate his time and his encouragement, but that's why I did it, because it didn't exist.
Which is scary. See, again, it goes back to, right, these athletes get, okay, you're going to be the coach now, and the team's performance goes down because they were good at the execution of their craft, but that doesn't mean they're going to be a good sales leader or a leader in their craft. So we're promoted based on our ability, but not on our ability to lead. And it's really like two sides of the brain that we're using, because, and here's the funny thing, and I know just in my when I coach, right, when I teach sales or I coach with my clients, no two people are the same. No two people are struggling with the same sub-skills or the combination of sub-skills. We truly are unique humans. So if I come in and I think, well, my way works, you should just do it my way. Meanwhile, you're this big extroverted, larger than life personality, and somebody on your team is a little bit more introverted. I'm not saying a wallflower, but a little more introverted and a little bit more poised and calm. They can't duplicate your process because it's going to be an epic fail, because they're not comfortable. They're trying to be something that they're not. Then you're inauthentic. The client feels it, and then that becomes that whole spiral effect. So, isn't that scary that there's no research out there, though? What great advice!
There's no research, but it's the status quo. So if anyone who listens to this in sales, your business comes from challenging the status quo. Your competition aren't people who do what you do; it's the status quo. And Liz J. Simpson told me that she's a coach that helps with this big money movement. But what I saw, I didn't get this from the research. I can go into the research a little bit, but I was thinking, like, why we know that sales is different than sales leadership. We know that it's a problem, but why isn't there training specifically for it?
It's crazy.
What is it about it? And I thought, I'll actually just share. So we promote. From the research, so I had over 150 people respond.
Nice,
sales leaders,
nice.
And that was the magic number Gerhard said I needed to actually get to
have the statistic analysis, right?
Statistics, yep. And most of them were in top leadership. So prior to becoming promoted, 43% told me they were in the top 10%. 18% said they were in the top 25%. 17% said they were in the top 1%. So most people were top salespeople. They are positive, they're go-getters, they figure it out. And I think we just take these people and go, well, they'll figure it out, they'll be okay. And they are okay, like they do figure things out, but it's where they mess up that causes the problems. And then what you get is this, sales leader who you're like, okay, well, they're going to make some mistakes, it's okay. But they never learn. They keep going up the career track. You're like, well, now they're a VP of sales.
Yeah.
You're like, I never learned how to get feedback.
Yeah.
I never learned how to not micromanage. I didn't learn. And it's not like they don't know everything. They have their strengths again, but it's where they mess up. And let me actually just share this. This was a question I asked. If they were trained effectively, how many fewer mistakes do you think that would be made? I couldn't correlate a number to what that costs organizations and mistakes, but it was pretty big. Hang on, let me go back to this where it was. Now I lost it, but I printed it all out.
You're so funny.
I know.
Notes are great if we could use them.
Decrease mistakes. So 45% of people said it would decrease mistakes between 11 and 50%.
Sure.
28% said it would decrease mistakes 51 to 99%. So everyone agreed it would decrease mistakes. And you, as a company or as just a salesperson, you're like, I'm taking my next leadership promotion in my own hands.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up. I don't want to do that. And so anyway, it's interesting. The numbers were interesting when I looked into it and dug into it, but I again.
It goes back to what I started with my communication style assessment, right? With my clients, I ask them to take that, because if you don't understand your own superpowers, you always want to build on strength. But if you don't understand your blind spots, because they're blind spots, and that's exactly what they're talking about, these leaders, they figure it out. But wouldn't it be great to figure out, I don't have a great skill at asking for feedback. I need to hone that skill. I'm not great at coaching. I'm really good at telling and demanding. You're not going to get that same response. It was funny when I first started in sales, Rebecca, oh my gosh, 39 years ago. And my sales manager was in insurance, so a little bit aggressive, right? Let's go there. It's aggressive. And I am more about doing the right thing than being aggressive and in your face. But I remember I'm really good at connecting and all of that. So I started getting a lot of business clients. And so this one young family went in to do the insurance. He was the business owner, and they needed disability insurance, but they also needed life insurance. So I sold my first $1 million policy. Now, this was back in the 80s, that's huge, okay? So I skipped into work the next day, just so happy that I could serve the client, but so happy that I got my first $1 million sale, right? And you know what he said to me? Why didn't you make it $2 million? Dude, you should not be teaching people because you're a horrific human being, right? That was his response. But that's because, more push. He said to me, you should have more debt. Why would I want more debt? It'll make you work harder. That was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard in my life. But they believed if you had a lot of debt, you would just do that much more. Where I'm thinking, I don't want to have debt. I want to buy a house. I had ambitions. Do we not take that into account? So his people skills he was so off in how he managed different people. Forget about a woman in insurance. And I was the only woman in that office. And, he probably thought I got stuck with this broad, right? Whatever. But that's the kind of shift he was so good at sales, they made him a manager. And that was the biggest mistake they could have done, because he was really bad. He was painful. But I learned leadership skills from him of what not to absolutely do, because he was scary.
Yeah, and I say that quite often. Our greatest strengths as salespeople can become our greatest weaknesses as sales leaders. Yes. And that's why what used to work didn't. So his unrelenting, his never being satisfied, you want a salesperson who's never satisfied. You always want a salesperson who's pushing the envelope and wanting to get better all the time. But then you transition that into sales leadership and you go, are you never happy? Are you never people are never appreciated? I have a whole list of these things of the difference between sales and sales leadership. And one of my favorite ones is, if you're running around with your head cut off in sales, you look like you're committed. Oh, you're busy, you're committed. You run around with your head cut off in sales leadership, you look like you should be committed. You have no control over what you're doing, right? And they go, well, let me just show how I'm busy and I'm productive and this means I'm successful. And there's just they don't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. So, yeah.
Well, the other thing with that too, being busy. See, so immediately I go to my sales leadership mind and I'm thinking, okay, I see you're busy. What are you busy doing? And are you busy doing the things that are going to make more sales, grow your business, whatever it is? Because we're really good at the minutia. We go where we're comfortable versus doing what we should be doing to make money, grow business, right? And it's perfecting your skills with the right behaviors in place so that this really leads to our next question, right? So people said in your research that they're emotionally exhausted or stressed out a lot. So think about it. If you're running around with a chicken, with a head cut off, you're extending and expending so much freaking energy. Of course you're exhausted. So when you get in front of the customer or your prospect, you're not shining your brightest light because you're so worn out from running around right with the chicken without head. So now you like to focus also on energy management for leaders. So what do you teach people about that? And everybody, I think you should take notes here because this is an important concept. Extending energy, like Rebecca said before, is wonderful. I'm busy. I'm pushing the envelope. I'm stretching myself. But are you doing it? Are you putting the energy in the right thing? So take some notes here.
Mm-hmm. I love to say that, and we've heard this before, but selling is a transference of feelings.
Yes.
Leadership is a transference of hope.
Yes.
You cannot inspire your team if you are drained. And one thing that I knew, but that I got really big confirmation on through this survey, were the comments of what people said, how is it different? And most of them were, it's emotional intelligence. It is so different. So when I asked what percentage of the time are you stressed out or emotionally exhausted, these were the numbers. 38% said they were that way 11 to 25% of the time. 25% said they were emotionally exhausted or stressed out 26 to 50% of the time. 16% said less than 10. That was it. And then 15% said 51 to 75.
Wow.
6% said more than 75% of the time.
Wow.
Now, stress isn't terrible. So I don't want to be like stress is bad, because stress is very motivating. And we do need it. Like, we need pressure. Actually, we need pressure, not stress.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. But leaders need to be very cognizant of how they fill up their cup and how they manage their energy. Jim Loehr wrote this phenomenal book called The Power of Full Engagement that my sales leader gave me probably 15 years ago. And he talks about different energies. There's emotional energy, spiritual energy, mental energy, and physical energy. And people, when you give like analogies to physical energy, that's the easiest one of like, you're working out, you pick up, let's say you're curling 15-pound weights, you want to get stronger, so you go up, you increase, you take a 20-pound weight, and then you have a rest day, right, for your body to recover. I think for sales leaders, this is my opinion, right? So I have to do a research survey to see if this is actually it. But I think the ability to focus is what is emotionally draining most of the time. I had a conversation with a new sales leader who, and new sales leaders are, most of my clients still have a book of business. That they have two jobs.
Yes.
The emerging sales leader sells and leads.
Sure.
It's not like they're just selling. That's a different leadership level. Anyway, but I said, he said, I'm so tired. I'm training all the time. I said, when was the last time you trained someone? He goes, 3 months ago. He was so exhausted because it just kept going around his head. And I tell people, if you don't get things off your chest, it goes to your head and it swirls around and it exhausts you.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And people, like, your job when you're selling is sales. Your job as a sales manager are your people, and people are exhausted. Your top salespeople, it's a transference of feelings. They have the biggest feelings. They have the biggest problems, typically.
Absolutely.
I don't want to be like salespeople are erratic and they're crazy people who don't. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that people have problems, and if the person's right, feel good, sell good. You have to make sure your sales force is in a good spot, and you need to fill up your cup. So I think there's, in a way to do this, check your energy or like audit, be like, this is me. I cold called for 15 years. And I'm so sick of cold calling. And I need to be reaching out to more, VPs. Like, I need to be doing that for my corporate workshops. And I'm on the phone the other day and I was like, I'm so sick of it. And I was like, how much do I actually do? You know what I mean? And myself, I'm like, I'm mentally out of alignment, right? Like, I'm mentally exhausted. I say, are you exhausted because you're thinking about the work?
That's right.
Or are you exhausted because you're actually doing the work? And
absolutely.
That's mental energy. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so funny. As soon as you said cold call, I broke into hives over here. Everybody, this is why I love my show. Or my shows, right? Because I have the other show, Enlightenment of Change, too. But here's why I really love hosting a podcast. Because my guests and we have our perspective, right? Humans, we have filters. The generational differences, male-female differences, where you grew up differences. So we have all these filters, plus our behavioral style, like my communication style assessment. All of that plays into how we see the world and how we approach the world. So as soon as you said cold call, I personally think cold calling is a waste of time. So when I teach and train, I help people put strategies in place so that it's always a warm call as they reach out. So you leverage your network. So that's why it's important to network, right? But you should be leveraging from a place of comfort, not fear that, oh my God, I have to make this cold call. I don't know this person. Then you shouldn't be calling them. Who are the warm calls you should be making to get introductions to those people, right? Instead of you making those cold calls. So it's funny because I listen, half of my career was making cold calls, and I taught myself how to leverage my network so that I literally get referrals, and I refer, and this is another tip, right? And I know, Rebecca, you do this as well. We do this both well. That whole networking piece. I probably send 10 to 12 intro emails. Rebecca, you need to meet so-and-so, so-and-so, you need to meet so-and-so, at least 10 to 12 a week. So when you're doing that, right, people want to help you back. So I'm getting referrals all the time. Oh my God, you need to meet so-and-so, you need to meet so-and-so. So most of and I probably have 10 to 15 meetings a week on average. If I round it out, probably 10 meetings a week. People who are introduced to me. I'm not doing any outreach for that other than my people, right? My network. So cold calling, really, there is another strategy. You just have to know how to implement that, right? So it's just funny that you're saying that, but I want to go back to Rebecca's point, whether it's cold calling or something else. If you hate doing it, you're thinking about it more than actually doing it. And if you really reflected and filled out like a daily, time journal, you'll see that you're thinking about the cold call or whatever it is that you don't want to do versus actually doing the skill. Right, Rebecca?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's where the burnout comes in and the whole, I'm exhausted, I don't want to do this, I hate doing this. And then you hate doing it, so you don't do it. Anything else you want to comment on? I want to talk about your book too.
I just think with energy, I have in the book, is actually maybe a tie-in. I actually have a burnout formula and then a sustainability formula, and this is because I'm an introvert, so new people exhaust me. Doesn't mean I'm antisocial. I have to anyway. So there is the big thing in the sales world where work hard, play hard, work hard, play hard. Work hard plus play hard equals fall hard. I subscribed to the work hard, play hard when I was in my 20s, right? And there's like different energy, but
sure,
as you adjust your life, I actually think that's a prescription for failing. And
yes,
we see this all the time. I think work is an addiction. It's the only addiction that the more addicted you get, the more praise you get, right? If there is an alcoholic who's getting more addicted to alcohol, you're not praising them, but you are praising them for work. You know what I mean? It's like, so I'm not saying you don't hustle. I am saying stop grinding. Like I hate that word because it means dull, meaningless work. But if you are working hard, then play hard and rest hard. If your play hard is rest, then that's okay. But for most people, they just feel like they have to go from one thing to the next, and they're never actually filling up their cup. So then I have a sustainability formula. If you want sustainable success, if you want to stop being inconsistent, and sales leaders need to be consistent. You can't be like, oh, well, this is just where the moon cycle is, so I'm high energy now, and then that's not going to work, So if you work hard, plus you play hard, plus you rest hard, those are not all three. They're not like you have balance. Rest hard could be a 15-minute meditation break in the middle of the day, right? It could be you drink enough water and you have enough sleep at night.
That's right.
Whether enough sleep, 6 hours or 10 hours, it's dependent. Plus you observe. And with leaders, you get paid to think. You get paid to say like what's working, what's not working, what's around the corner, right? Threats, opportunities, all that stuff. And then you level up. What do you need to change in skilling up? Because if you don't level up, and we see a lot of sales leaders who are just phoning it in, waiting for retirement, they're just riding it out.
Yes.
Boredom leads to burnout.
Yes.
Boredom leads to burnout. And so I think most people in sales, we are all wired to constantly, like, we are looking for how do we get better? How do we get stronger? And so, but that is something to look for, but then you get sustainable success.
And it's true, if you're burnt out and pooped all the time, you can't show up, man. Right? You're pooped and burnt out, right? So we have to make sure we find that balance. And it's so funny. I will admit, reformed workaholic or reforming, I think is a better word. I'm really good at work. I really love what I do. So when you have, do you want to just go and relax, or do you want to do something productive? I'm like the productivity junkie, right? Let me get one more thing done. And I remember, like you laughed, my husband and I, we were married, no kids yet. And I remember it was a beautiful day one day. I'm always productivity, right? What can I do that I could get a result, both in my home life and professional life at the time? And I remember he said, oh, it's so nice. Let's just get in the car and go for a ride. My response, I am not spontaneous, he tells me. So my response was, okay, where are we going? He goes, I don't know. Let's just get in the car and go. We'll head west, or whatever direction he said. And I go, well, but where are we going? And he's like, nowhere special. I go, no, I can't do that. We have to have a destination. Do we need to go to Home Depot to do something for the house? Do we need to stop by? Maybe we should go food shopping today. Like, I clearly needed a destination. And this is when he said to me, you are not spontaneous at all. My response, Rebecca, is, oh, wait, give me a second. I could be spontaneous. Let me think about it. So not spontaneous, because for me, you're going to move, you're going to do something. There has to be a destination. There has to be a result. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. So we were talking, Rebecca's husband is very much like my husband, right, Rebecca? They're calm and just the best guys in the world. And we're a little kooky and crazy, right? Because we have this high energy. But can you picture it?
Yourself, Connie.
I know. Don't throw me in with you. But Rebecca, that was literally a conversation we had, and my husband threw me in the car and he's like, just sit there. Don't open your mouth. I'm driving. And you know what was funny? It was a beautiful day. We had no destination. It was just gorgeous to be outside. But he has taught me that over our 29 years of marriage. So anybody listening, what we're talking about, we all have a little bit of that. Just don't go down the rabbit hole that you can't find your way out, right? And I think, Rebecca, you and I, again, because our husbands are so amazing, that they pull us out of that rabbit hole, right? Which is, I think, important for you to have someone in your life that can help with that balance as well.
Yes, and one thing I teach in my courses, I have time management, energy management, and what I say is rest is part of your efficiency plan.
Yeah.
You can be productive, but how efficient are you being?
Absolutely.
Are you, and you have to pause to actually, you can't just, and there's been a research, I think Dr. Mordson, he wrote Great at Work, and he has this research with, there comes a certain point where more work, you don't get the value.
That's right.
You don't
Diminishing returns.
It doesn't actually make sense
Yep.
to keep working.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying end of month, you aren't working and you're pushing through for your sales goals and your sales. That's not what I'm saying, because there are times where you just go, great, that's but we gotta push. There are pushing times, and there are cycles in business that you do that. But if that's all you do, you're actually not efficient. You're actually losing money, because you're paying
Yes.
people where less people could do it if they learned how to manage their energy and time better. And one thing I do want to say about energy, I talked about sleep. All of the energies together matter. So what you're putting into your body matters.
Sure.
What kind of food are you putting into your body? What content are you consuming, right? Like, what's going into your brain? It's all of that stuff matters, and it impacts how efficient you are.
Yeah, and I think humans overall, we have to have that balance, right? When, eat, like if you want to have ice cream, okay, but don't have ice cream every day, and don't have a half a gallon, right? A whole thing of Ben & Jerry's. So again, everything in moderation is where we create a better health in all, spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. So here's another thing for leaders, and I know, because leaders don't just impact their team, there's that whole ripple effect, right? So like my manager many years ago, why didn't you send a $2 million policy? I have to tell you, that brought me down. I have high energy, and I'm a very positive person. I felt defeated that day. I thought I'm just not good enough. I'm never going to be good enough. And then that weighs on you. So I went home, and, you complain. At the time I was still living home. I was in my early 20s, and, you complain to your parents that I probably was a little bit more moody than I should have been. So it affects everything. And what I'm finding too, and I know you find this, Rebecca, the higher you are in the organization, the heavier the pressures, I think, so that that whole ripple effect, we could really crush people, and then they go home and they feel crushed. And a Gallup poll, I want to say maybe 2 years ago, 73% of Americans hate their job, not just sales, but hate their job. And the number one reason is because they hate their boss. So leaders, we have such an impact not only on the person, but really on their family life, their personal life as well. So this is a serious conversation that we want to make sure that we affect how we behave, so that we could literally affect and correct that ripple effect. What do you tell your clients with that? Because I think this is important.
I talk about that ripple effect all of the time. And the thing about the emerging sales leader, so we know that no one has a bigger impact over your success than your direct manager.
Yep.
Not just in sales, but in business.
Yep.
And so that new manager, they have the biggest impact over their sales team, but they also have a manager. And when you get, so there's this ripple effect of like, what the higher up, maybe it's the VP, maybe it's the director, maybe it's the CEO, but there's somebody usually above that first level leader. And they're pressuring, and then they're just like putting it down on them. And you have to be very aware of, it's not, maybe you have a team of 5 people. Well, most of those 5 people, they probably have significant others or children.
Sure.
So you're not really in charge of 5 people. The ripple effect is you're in charge of probably 20.
That's right.
Like just 20 people. And there is, when you're new in any business, an encouraging word could stop someone from being in sales. Like, words are so powerful.
Yes.
But to go back to your boss, and a better way to say that is be like, Connie, that's a big deal. Congratulations on your $1 million loan. I think you have what it takes to find a $2 million loan.
Absolutely.
I believe in you. I think you could do that. And you go, oh, instead of being like, keep going, like, it's never enough, because my boss is telling me we got, it's, you work through other people, and you have to figure out what everyone's styles are.
Absolutely.
But that ripple effect is just, you can help them create. If you train a new salesperson and they know how to sell, they will never go hungry.
That's right.
I think the only way a salesperson goes hungry is if they're lazy in life, right?
Absolutely.
If you know how to sell, you will always be employed.
I agree.
And there's so much you can really ruin. And we do learn through bad bosses just as much as we learn through good bosses, like what we want to be and don't want to be. But there are so many people, you have no idea what's going on at home or what's happening inside of their head. And like, flip it. That's why you have to be emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
As a leader. It's this is something I teach in the course too, but only 33% of people can accurately describe their feelings as they happen.
That's right.
And so if you react right away, like I was on the phone with a client the other day, and I said, you're not mad at your manager, you're hurt.
Yes.
Like, your feelings are hurt. You're just responding in anger because you're like,
yes,
fight or flight, I'm going to fight, right? And
yes,
so she goes, you're right. I'm actually just hurt.
That's right.
And it's bringing up other feelings as a child. And so
absolutely.
I'm not a therapist, but I'm sure you go into that too. It's like, anyway, but you have to be emotionally intelligent and really be cognizant of what you're saying.
It's true. And, we lead through people. You can't get the results. Organizations can't get the revenue, the growth, whatever it is for their year, even as a business owner, right? You want to keep raising the bar and growing your income and growing your business and network and all those things. You have to be emotionally intelligent, and you lead through people. I lead through my network, right? I grow through my network. I want to help my network grow. It's all about leading through people. We can't do it alone. It's impossible to do that. The other thing you mentioned is about, we're out of time, but I just want to break down a couple of things that you said. That whole idea of that style, we all have different styles. In my communication style that I started with at the top of the show, there's 5 key styles that humans fall within. So 20% of the time, Rebecca, we're talking to people just like us. The downside, though, and this is a blind spot, 80% or 8 out of 10 people we talk about or talk to are different than us. So what do we need to modify and shift so that we're giving that person what they need? And that goes back keys to your 33%. So 33% of that, 100% pool that I'm talking about, they have a level of high emotional intelligence. The other, 70 whatever percent don't have, or 67% don't have that level of emotional intelligence. So our styles impact how we show up and how we manage. So be mindful of that, guys. You don't realize that sometimes you're truly hurting someone and putting them down because they're motivated differently than you are. They feel differently than you do. So really pay attention to that. Use my communication style assessment. It's free. So again, it just gives you a little bit of insight of exactly what Rebecca was talking about. We're out of time. I do think you need more Rebecca in your life, right? You need more Connie in your life too. Please go to Rebecca's website. It's risewithrebecca.com. If you have a question specific for Rebecca, go to risewithrebecca@gmail.com. Again, the title of her book, I'm going to go up in my notes here, Beyond the Board, How to Achieve Your Vision Board Goals in a Fulfilling and a Sustainable Way. And I think the word sustainable is kind of important as well. So again, risewithrebecca@gmail.com or risewithrebecca.com. You guys know I will put all that information on the show notes as well. And if you need more Connie in your life, whitmanassociates.com. Everything's there, guys. My resources, my page, my master classes, my books, you name it, it's there. One way to stay in touch with me as well. Rebecca, thank you so much. If there's one thing you want people to remember from you and from this show, right? What would that be, that one thing?
Just that the jump from sales to sales leadership doesn't have to be as messy as what it ends up being for people. Yeah.
Figure out what you're missing before you jump in and start creating that whole ripple effect, right, that we talk about, before you start ripping people apart, because everybody's not like you, right? That's really the moral of the story, right, Rebecca?
Yes.
Yes, 100%. Thank you so much for being on. Sales, my favorite topic to talk about. So it's definitely fun for me. I hope people walked away with understanding, even a little bit about themselves. And the last thing I'll say on the subject is some people, you shouldn't be a sales leader. So really start to evaluate that. Are you happy being in sales? And there's nothing wrong with that, you being the sales professional. Or do you really feel like, wow, I really want to help others grow their skills and coach them to greatness? Then that might be an inner voice telling you that you should get into the leadership aspect of it. But you have to be true to yourself. You really have to understand what's going to make you happy versus being under the grind. So again, Rebecca, great topic. Thank you so much for being on. It was just great conversation. And everybody, again, check Rebecca out. So risewithrebecca.com. Thank you, Rebecca, for being on. Always fun to hang out with you, my friend.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Always a pleasure. And you guys, I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together that word sales should not be icky, sleazy, and pushy, and really come from a place of love, care, and respect. Additionally, if you are taking that sales leadership role, please make sure that you're teaching from that place of love, care, and respect, and approaching your employees, like Rebecca was talking about today, again, from that place of love, care, and respect. Thank you so much for joining me on the Heart-Centered Sales Leader podcast with me, your Heart-Centered Sales Leader and host, Connie Whitman. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful week and truly begin to listen and come back to the show, hopefully. But I hope that you change your perspective and realize that this journey is easier than we think when we use all of these skills and all of these experts that I bring to the show. We can make it so much easier than we do. And I'm truly honored to have you on this journey with me. And I wish you all an inspired week of ease and grace and love. Thanks, everybody.